tuning in to Real Life with Ashley. We have the one and only Dr. Peter McCullough, who took time out of his busy schedule to talk with me. I'm very flattered. Thank you, Dr. Peter McCullough, for coming on board to speak with me.
I can't believe I finally made it on your podcast. You know, I've been waiting for so long. You know, I went on Joe Rogan, I set all the records, and I went on Brad Lee and Majid Nawaz and Tommy Kerrigan and you know, Lara Trump. But no, I've been waiting for Ashley, and I finally got you. And it was so hard because, you know, I think I didn't turn up my volume on my computer. I couldn't hear you, but it's so great to meet you. And, you know, I think you represent so many young people out there who have a lot of questions.
I'm a millennial, and trust me, we have to shake this millennial generation up, even the generation after me. I mean, it's crazy what we're going through. But Dr. Peter McCullough, you are an internist, cardiologist, epidemiologist. My goodness. And this still wasn't enough for Wikipedia, because according to them, you are a misinformationist and a conspiracy theorist. That's pretty disrespectful to a man like you who spent just about all his life in school, wouldn't you say?
The word is defamatory. Actually, Wikipedia is defamation is when people write untrue, insulting things about one another, libels when they say it. But yeah, it's defamatory. And prior to the pandemic, you know, I was the most published person in my field in the world in history. I studied heart and kidney disease, professor of medicine, multiple institutions, editor of 2 major journals, inaugural editor of the textbook Cardiorenal Medicine, president of a major medical society. So my Wikipedia page before the pandemic was a lot different. And so what happened during the pandemic is Wikipedia has anonymous editors, and they can write all kinds of incorrect things on there, and you can't change it yourself, because I've tried to. I've even gotten lawyers.
And paid by yours truly, Bill Gates.
Well, you know, one of the people on my Wikipedia is someone named the Alt Man. I'd love to meet him. He's somewhere in Illinois, he or she. But they've made, you know, close to 300 entries. What do they know about me? Why don't they give me a call and we can talk about it? What we're seeing now is unbridled defamation, censorship. We're seeing things that are just out of this world. I don't know if you saw recently the announcement of the Nobel Prize. Did you see that?
Yes, man and a woman. I printed something out on that. I'm glad you brought that up.
This is stunning. So listen, they already have tape. So one of the winners is Dr. Drew Weissman from University of Pennsylvania. And in 2021, he says, and, you know, again, he's won the Nobel Prize for modifying messenger RNA and making it longer, making it synthetic, essentially. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, the messenger RNA in the vaccine gets out of the body probably in under a week. He says that on tape in 2021. And now there's a paper by Castriuta saying it's floating around in the bloodstream for a month. Röntgen and colleagues found it stuck in lymph nodes for 2 months. And now a terrible paper, it just came out from Harvard. Crossan and colleagues finds messenger RNA stuck in the human heart for a month, causing heart damage, probably because of local production of the spike protein. I mean, why is the Nobel Prize winner is completely wrong about messenger RNA in the vaccines in 2021, and yet in 2023, he wins the Nobel Prize?
You know, excuse my French, but it's absolute bullshit. I just remember it popping up on my news feed, and I just thought to myself, what does Dr. Peter McCullough have to say about this? I mean, you know, I just see it as a big slap in the face. I have a handful of injured loved ones, family, and friends. This is nothing new. You know, we've, like you said in your European Parliament speech recently, by the way, impeccable. I applaud you. You really are a hero of our time in healthcare. You know, I was a health science major. I just recently changed my degree plans to interdisciplinary studies because I no longer want to be a part of a sick care system.
Oh boy, and Americans sick, you know, a Zogby survey done in summer 2022, 15% of people who take the shots have some chronic illness. Of those who still risk more boosters, the CDC VSafe data shows 7.7% of people who take a shot have to go to the ER or become hospitalized. They're so acutely ill. now a paper out of my Substack summarizing data from the boosters, healthcare workers. 30% are so sick they have to call in sick and miss work. So the
I believe it.
hospitals forcing the vaccine on the workers are making the workers sick, and they're actually not showing up on the job. So the vaccines are not safe for human use. And, in the in the EU Parliament, September 13th, 2023, I called for all market removal with medical authority. And I did so on December 7th, 2022. We've had the World Council for Health, June 11th of 2022, official, factual, evidence-based, consensus-driven recommendation, pull the vaccines from the market. And now the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, March of 2023, pull the vaccines off the market. So we have a lot of calls to pull them off the market. But to this day, every single government in the world is pushing the vaccines. And in every single country in the world, the vaccines are still government property. We've never had drugs or vaccines be government property. But in fact, they are. They're not commercially bought and sold.
It's disgusting. Dr. Peter McCullough, I wanted to get your take, an update on the state of our American healthcare system. We've seen persecution and a takeover of practicing healthcare professionals like yourself, Dr. Tenpenny. There were some things I did want to bring up with a certain healthcare system, but I cannot do that. Understandable. We've seen big pharma take over. And as you mentioned, the future our healthcare professionals that are currently in the hospitals, but the future healthcare professionals, I've talked with a lot of nursing students who seem a little confused, maybe a little timid as to what's going on. They don't know which way to look, who to believe. What are your thoughts on all of this as to where we are today? Like you said at the European Parliament, I mean, we are going on our third year into this tragedy we've been witnessing unfold before our eyes.
Well, that's a valid point. Just the time. So the pandemic now is 4 years old. The vaccine debacle is 3 years old. I mean, that's a long period of time. That's almost the entire time you
Yeah.
go through nursing school. People want to look to authority and be able to trust authority figures, whether they be leaders in medicine, medical schools, nursing schools, public health agencies. They've lost their trust. We just gave the example. The Nobel Prize laureate for messenger RNA doesn't even know how long it lasts in the body, and when he guessed wrong, and he wins the Nobel Prize for a wrong guess. I mean, this is it's absolutely astounding. But it's occurring in the context of something important historically. We're about 150 years into what I call vaccine ideology. And vaccine ideology, I started out with Dr. Edward Jenner and then Louis Pasteur. Vaccine ideology says the human body is inherently frail and vulnerable, and that man can improve upon one's health by multiple vaccination. And the same vaccine ideology, by the way, is extended to our pets and to livestock. That again, these animals are inherently vulnerable, so they need shots. Well, come on. You look at other animals in nature; they're not giving each other shots. They're out there living to the extent that they, live healthy lives. And this vaccine ideology has, over 150 years, has been promulgated with a real mantra that it cannot be challenged. So once vaccines come on the market, they can't be challenged. They're never removed. Outside of the rare circumstance of the smallpox vaccine. And the smallpox vaccine program was 70 years, by the way. And then the swine flu, the swine flu had a failed vaccine back it was a primordial vaccine back in, early 1900s. But even I take it back. The Spanish flu had a primordial vaccine back in the early 1900s. Swine flu had a vaccine that was removed from the human market by President Ford. But here we are today with more and more vaccines for children, yet the infectious disease threats aren't there. With modern, sewer, sanitation, water, we don't have a polio threat. We don't have diphtheria, pertussis. measles, mumps, rubella. I mean, those are just simply not threats. And every single one of those illnesses largely went away before the vaccines came out. So it was really due to cleaner living. Same thing is true with livestock, by the way. Some naturopathic veterinarians think we need no shots for cattle or for other livestock. But this vaccine ideology has been brewing, cannot be challenged, has not had an eye towards safety. We have had, I think we're up to about 200 papers linking immune system dysregulation to a variety of neuropsychiatric diseases, including attention deficit disorder, Asperger's, autism spectrum disorder, as well as some motor and neurologic disorders. Immune system.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We have about 800 papers total in this whole topic of hypervaccination and autism, and whether or not it's related. And now we have 5 papers that do the opposite. This is very important. 5 papers that do the opposite and test children who go natural. So children in modern day era who take no shots. So that'd be Mawson, Miller, Hooker, Thomas, and then an older Amish study, all showing natural kids who take no shots, much lower rates of atopic dermatitis, need for tympanostomy tubes, need for antibiotics for pharyngitis, lesser food allergies, lesser asthma, and lower rates of neuropsychiatric syndromes, including autism. So, I mean, just the empiric observational data would suggest if you're a young parent today and you want your child to be as healthy as possible, you'd actually skip the vaccines. And the World Council for Health in the last month has finally issued guidance on this, saying, listen, now that messenger RNA has been added to the childhood schedule and messenger RNA is very dangerous, that parents should decline all the vaccines for the children, take a wait and see approach until some of this madness starts to calm down.
Absolutely. I actually stopped vaccinating my 7-year-old son back in late 2018. And Dr. McCullough, I got to tell you, his pediatrician was not happy. I mean, he did everything he can just to convince me otherwise. And this was just over the flu vaccine. I was like, dude,
children don't
give me a break.
Serious influenza. A paper by Chen and colleagues in 2022 showed the flu vaccine had a vaccine efficacy against severe outcomes of 0, statistically insignificant 0. Basically, the flu shot doesn't work. And, we're not anti-vaxxers. What we've become vaccine risk aware. Now, I can tell you, I took all the shots. I'm 60 years old. I've been a doctor. I took 40 years of flu shots because I had to be in the hospital. I forced it on us. So I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm a pincushion. I've taken so many shots. It's impossible for anybody to call me an anti-vaxxer, but I am now vaccine risk aware. My kids growing up took all the shots. I didn't look at it critically. But if I was a young parent today, based on where we are, especially with the dangerous messenger RNA being on the routine schedule, I would decline all the shots. I would follow the World Council for Health.
Thank you for that. And even just pulling up here from Epoch Health, infectious diseases, potent neurotoxin. Am I saying this right? Thimerosal?
Yeah, thiomersal
is still used.
Right.
Yeah, it's still being used in some flu vaccines. I kind of find that hard to believe because I just feel like, we are where we are today since COVID, and there's just been no transparency.
Right. Well, listen, there was always 2 metals that worry about. Would that be thiomersal, mercury, and then aluminum? But, it's also aluminum in kids' allergy shots and other products. I really think that it probably wasn't the trace metals, but it's just the immune system hyperactivation. And, I've been impressed with a paper by D. Long that was published several years ago, where it really showed that we didn't really see a relationship between vaccination and autism until we saw combined products, where there was measles, mumps, rubella together, the diphtheria, pertussis, and diphtheria, acellular pertussis, and tetanus together, DPT. Once we started combining the shots, it's too much immune system activation. So, for instance, there's a fatal case in VAERS, a young child under age 2, in a single setting received measles, mumps, rubella, diphtheria, acellular pertussis, and tetanus, influenza, pneumococcal, and COVID all together. All together. The baby died within a few hours. So
I think I know which story or what case you're talking about. Infant, right?
yeah,
Cute little baby boy.
yeah. So
Yeah, I remember seeing that on
it's
LinkedIn.
death by hypervaccination. And I think it's the vignettes like this. The World Council for Health said enough's enough. So listen, if the CDC and is going to support it, we've got another worldwide agency that's saying no. So the agencies don't agree. And I think parents are going to need to make their choices now. A recent Kaiser Family Foundation survey done, they do them periodically. Very pro-vaccine group, by the way. A third of parents are backing away from the childhood vaccine schedule. A third of adults think the COVID vaccines are causing thousands of deaths, and they're right.
Duh. Yeah. It's like Dr. Sucharit Bhakti, who's a medical microbiologist. He's Thai, based out of Germany. I don't know if you've ever
Mhm.
heard of him. It was a recent interview, or actually, it wasn't a recent interview. I think it came out last year. But long story short, this journalist was challenging him. Well, how do you know it's the COVID vaccine? Blah, blah. He's like, well, it's the only thing that's new.
Yeah, it's true. Listen, I just appeared on a show with Dr. Dennis Rancourt, has over 30 peer-reviewed publications on the topic. It's clear from ecological analyses, the more vaccines and more boosters, the more the deaths. In fact, you can just see the increase in deaths with each booster that rolls out. We know that the
Absolutely.
vaccines result in fatal syndromes. I'm the senior author on the largest autopsy paper done so far. And anybody having an autopsy after a shot, after independent review and adjudication, 74% of the cases are due to the vaccine. That's overall. Now, if it's a death in a young person suspected of having myocarditis, it's 100%. When they actually do the autopsy, they find myocarditis. So, we have a very, very serious problem on our hands because all the governments are pushing the vaccines. The vaccines are related to record numbers of deaths. They should have been pulled off the market in January if they get on the market. Even the Pfizer dossier has been looked at critically. Listen to this. Pfizer picked a mid-November data cutoff to assemble their briefing booklet and course slides for the FDA VRBPAC meeting. Now, when the meeting occurred on December 10th, 2022, it turns out there were 38 additional deaths in the trials program. But it didn't get into the data booklet because it's after the data cutoff. Now, in those deaths, there were far more with Pfizer than placebo. And if those deaths would have been reviewed as part of the packet, there would have been a threefold increased risk of cardiovascular death by December 10th, 2020. That's even before they came out. And Pfizer never disclosed the additional deaths, which companies should. If there's been more events since the data cutoff, they always present it. Listen, I've been on FDA data safety monitoring boards. I've been on the FDA review committees. I've done it all. So I know this is usual and customary. And then the review committee should have asked them, are there more deaths since the data cutoff? But no one did. Pfizer got on the market and with this basically death signal, even pre-approval. And what we learned is in the 90-day post-marketing data with Pfizer, there were 1,223 deaths worldwide reported to Pfizer. Pfizer didn't say a word. They didn't pull the product off the market. The FDA didn't say a word. In fact, the FDA tried to block that to Americans for 55 years in court. So our FDA is in a form of a serious data safety cover-up with Pfizer and the other companies.
It's pretty obvious if you ask me. I mean, WHO, FDA, CDC, NIH, they're all in bed with each other. That's just what it's concluded. And then we have the news still coercing and brainwashing the masses. I wanted to jump into this part because you're a cardiologist, and it goes over till this day is just so annoying. What are the concerns about new COVID boosters? Despite the overwhelming safety profile of previous COVID-19 vaccinations, some people are still concerned about the safety of these additional vaccinations. The big safety issue is, of course, myocarditis, heart inflammation. William Schaffner, a professor of preventive medicine and infectious disease at the Vanderbilt University Medical Center, told Newsweek. But myocarditis is first a rare event. Doesn't seem so rare nowadays. Would you agree, Dr. Peter McCullough?
No, it's not rare. The FDA demanded Moderna and Pfizer conduct prospective cohort studies. They never did. They never fulfilled their post-marketing commitment. So the studies were done. One was by Mansugian in Thailand, the other one by Buren and Mueller in Switzerland. Now, prospective cohort means you do all the tests, the cardiac test before the shot, take the shot, and do all the tests afterwards. It's the only way to figure out how common this is. The answer, both studies agree, it's about 2.5% who develop myocarditis, about 2.5%. Now, very disturbingly, Nakahata and colleagues have done a cardiac PET study, positron emission tomography, a PET scan, in patients who took the vaccine versus those who didn't. Big study. Nearly everybody who took the vaccine, their cardiac PET scans turn abnormal. And there's a shift from the normal reliance on fatty acids for metabolic fuel to glucose. And the normal hearts are perfectly normal. They don't uptake any 18-fluorodeoxyglucose. What does this mean? We use cardiac PET to identify sick areas of the heart muscle. And when the heart muscle gets ischemic or sick, it shifts from fatty acid to glucose metabolism. I'm telling you, that happens in nearly everybody who takes the shot. And then we have papers by Gill, Choi, Bowmeyer, all showing the spike protein is in the heart, causing heart damage. And then the Harvard paper from Crossan showing the messenger RNA is stuck in the heart at least for 30 days. So let me tell you what, myocarditis is common. It's serious. Of the acute cases, the vast majority end up in the hospital, and it's fatal. It results in death. And so, we've heard a false narrative. The first false narrative we've heard is that myocarditis is more common with COVID. No, it's not. As a matter of fact, there was a huge surveillance program in 2020 for COVID-induced myocarditis. The NCAA Big Ten screened thousands of athletes who got COVID. And a paper by Daniels and colleagues showed that with MRI and troponin and all the other testing, handful of people had some abnormalities. No serious cases of hospitalization and death. None. The Israeli military, U.S. military did the same thing. Again, no serious myocarditis. Even a paper by Singer and colleagues using automated sources of data. 2 hospitalizations, but not sure if it's for myocarditis or not. Then enter the vaccines. By June of 2021, our CDC is saying the vaccines cause myocarditis, hospitalized myocarditis. Hundreds of cases pour in. Now we're at thousands upon thousands of people hospitalized with myocarditis. Paper by Yonker and colleagues. Kids hospitalized with vaccine myocarditis at Massachusetts General Hospital. Spike protein circulating in the bloodstream, not being blocked by antibodies. Paper by Barmata and colleagues from Yale showing that the MRI abnormalities are not resolving after 9 months. Paper from Taiwan suggests even a year. So the kids' hearts are being permanently damaged with COVID-19 vaccine-induced myocarditis. 90% are boys, peak age 18 to 24, but it can extend up to men. Former Tampa Bay Buccaneers coach Bruce Arians spent October of 2022 in the hospital with vaccine myocarditis. He was pushing the vaccine on himself, coaches and players, and boy, he got burned.
Yeah, talk about being burned. I mean, look at LeBron James and his son, DeMar Hamlin. It's just funny when you see all the writing on the wall and everyone's still just trying to bury their head in the sand.
But
It's
why would
amazing how
they?
far we've come.
But Ashley, if you took a vaccine and let's say you got burned and you had a stroke or a blood clot, wouldn't you feel an obligation to come out and warn others?
Absolutely,
So, what do
absolutely.
you think's what's in the mind of Jamie Foxx with probably a vaccine stroke, or Justin Bieber with a vaccine Ramsay Hunt syndrome for 2 years won't go away,
Yeah,
or
and his wife, Justin Bieber's
blood
wife. They're a
clot?
married,
Yeah,
young married couple. Remember that? She got a blood clot. Well, you know what I find so funny? So here's what's interesting. I'm gonna tell you something about Haley Bieber. So I truly believe one of my uncles last year who passed away from, they said it was a tumor that was embedded. It was really small and it was embedded in his brain, but I truly believe it was a clot because he had the same exact symptoms that Haley Bieber was going through. Now, he had passed before her whole fiasco came out. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, everything she went through, all her symptoms of falling and, all this, I said, this was the same thing that my uncle's neighbors were telling me. He would fall all of a sudden. He was perfectly fine. He was able to walk on his own. Now, he wasn't, the most healthiest. He was in his 70s, but my uncle was working, as far as we know, thriving, and that the neighbors were just saying that just one day they were just catching him on the floor. They ended up finding his vaccine card when they were cleaning out his apartment. So, we can't really say that, oh, yeah, he for sure died of this vaccine, but I strongly believe that he was killed by his vaccine for sure.
Well,
But
let me
they
get
said it was a tumor.
let me get a few more citations in here. Since you brought up cancer, I was holding back on expressing concerns over cancer until the data started to come in. So I wanted to make you aware of this. This is on my Courageous Discourse Substack, a paper. And again, people know me. I've been on national TV hundreds of times. I'm the only medical doctor of authority that actually quotes the literature on TV. A paper by Anguez and Bustos is on the preprint server system, and the title of it is "Navigating Uncharted Waters: Could COVID-19 Vaccine and/or Certain COVID-19 Vaccines Promote Malignancy?" And their presenting was called a multi-hit hypothesis that the vaccines inhibit the tumor suppressor systems P53 and BRCA1 and 2. They reduce the ability of the body to naturally repair DNA. And then lastly, they're potentially contaminated with DNA plasmids called SV40. So,
oh, yeah. Dr. Mikovits has been beating the drum on that for a while now.
Right. So anytime that there is a multi-hit hypothesis, it makes it far more likely to be the case. And then I wanted to get another citation in here, very important. First author is Kerry Gokoulis, and I'm one of the authors on the paper. And this is a man from Greece who takes the vaccine, and then he promptly develops a Bell's palsy or paralysis of the facial nerve. And then it quickly involves the trigeminal nerve. And it turns out that he has a basaloid cancer here, and it invades the brain and is fatal. So this is well documented. This is now published in the peer-reviewed literature of a bona fide case of COVID-19 vaccine-induced cancer. This has also been reported for a form of a lymphoblastic leukemia. And I think when the data come in, I've been pushing all the public health officials, they need to merge the cancer registries with the vaccine administration data and tell us what's going on. But to summarize, we now have scientific data, of which I'm one of the most published doctors in the world. I have over 70 peer-reviewed papers on COVID. Scientific data demonstrating the vaccines cause myocarditis and progression of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, including heart attacks. They cause stroke, both hemorrhagic and ischemic stroke. And again, the FDA has warnings on these. They cause other neurologic problems like Guillain-Barré syndrome and small fiber neuropathy, seizures, hearing loss, vision loss. The vaccines cause blood clots, and the FDA has published on this paper by Wu and colleagues conclusively. The vaccines cause blood clots, large blood clots that are not resolving with blood thinners. Many are fatal pulmonary embolism, arterial and venous blood clots. They cause autoimmune syndromes, including vaccine-induced thrombocytopenic purpura, as well as multisystem inflammatory disease, but also ANA positive syndromes. And now they cause cancer. So 5 major areas of disease. And so we can go round and round on this. So let's take myocarditis. The case example would be a basketball player, Oscar Cabrera Adames. So he's from Dominican Republic and he's an international player. He takes the vaccine. He gets myocarditis and has a cardiac arrest on the court. And he tweets out, "I got myocarditis from the vaccine." So this is clear. Now he goes for 2 years not playing. He's on a medical stress test trying to come back to play basketball, and he dies of a cardiac arrest on a stress test. Okay, so that's your
God.
myocarditis case example. Let's take stroke. How about Jamie Foxx? Jamie wanted to meet me in 2021. We met, we took pictures, we talked. I told Jamie he knew the vaccines weren't safe. Hollywood reporter AJ Benza reports, and I think this is consistent, that Jamie took a shot because he thought he had to go on an acting set, and now he suffers a catastrophic stroke and he's out of acting and entertaining. Made one video. He looked terrible. His face is partly paralyzed. He says he has tubes in him. I presume feeding tubes and prior tracheostomy tube. Okay, so that's
Wow.
stroke. Let's take blood clots. How about singer Tori? What's Tori's last name? A blonde-haired singer. I'll think about it in a second. I think Tori James, I believe. Blood clots. But I'll give you another example. How about Kirk Herbstreit, my favorite ESPN announcer? He takes the vaccine, multiple blood clots, reports it. Al Roker, my favorite weatherman on TV, multiple shots, blood clots. So lots of blood clot examples. Oh, the example I think of was Tori Kelly, who's famous singer. Now, how about autoimmune syndromes? Megyn Kelly just comes out and announces that she has a vaccine autoimmune syndrome. She's kind of upset about that. She looks terrific, healthy. Why would she be sick with a vaccine? Well, she is. And she actually confronted former President Trump on this. And now cancer. And we see case after case after case. Even elderly people.
Turbo cancers.
Yeah,
turbo cancers in young people, like teenagers. I have a nurse friend who worked at a clinic last year. She was just like, just all these young teens coming in with cancer. She goes, and I'm not talking just like these mild cancers. She goes, aggressive cancers they're coming in with.
That turbo cancer turns out to be the right term, because it's not only de novo cancers progressing much more rapidly, but it could be a cancer that's in remission, and then it comes out of remission and becomes fatal. And you're right. We've seen case after case after case of this. And then we're seeing people basically, who are being hastened to their demise. Case in point recently is Dianne Feinstein, who is a six-term U.S. senator. She has a classic vaccine syndrome. She has neuroinvasive herpes zoster meningoencephalitis with Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. So she actually has the same facial syndrome as Justin Bieber, but it invades her brain and it's fatal. So, we have a situation where this is an ongoing biological catastrophe. None of the governments will stop it all over the world. None of the governments will come clean on the safety data. They just awarded the Nobel Prize for the people who contributed this. It is so out of control right now. People are heading for the exits. They don't trust their doctors. They are looking for alternatives. People are backing away from vaccines altogether. I can tell you personally, I'm never taking another shot. No, I just.
Good for you.
Yeah, and you know what? Moderna has announced they have dozens of messenger RNA vaccines. They could take a relatively safe vaccine like influenza and make it dangerous, because the genetic code, there's no way to turn it off. So once Pfizer, Moderna is injected in your body, you can't get it out of your body and you can't turn it off. And it produces an endless supply of the disease-promoting and potentially lethal Wuhan Spike protein.
This is apocalyptic, wouldn't you say? What we're seeing, I'm seeing it firsthand. So speaking of pulmonary embolism, my uncle here in Houston, Texas, he hasn't been the same. So it took his 4th booster to put him on his butt, and it was the bivalent. He was working for Walmart. Again, he's a senior citizen as well, but he was thriving. This is a different uncle. But 4 clotted arteries around his heart, Dr. McCullough. 4, one at 30, the other one at 50, the third at 70, and then another one at 90%.
Yeah, that's what we call.
They say that he's a walking miracle, is what the doctor told him.
Right, that's what we call a progression of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. I'm a cardiologist. I'm still in the office right now, and I can tell you we are seeing this in our daily practice. Famed cardiologist Aseem Malhotra from Manchester, UK. That's how his father. His father's a doctor His father died of the vaccine through this mechanism of progressive atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. A few years ago, there was an abstract at the American Heart Association where they took a bunch of vaccine volunteers and they did a blood test before the vaccine and then after the vaccine, and the blood test skyrocketed in all the blood inflammatory factors that trigger plaque rupture and myocardial infarction. So the data are there, and it's extraordinarily dangerous to take this shot in people with heart disease. Do you know that cardiologists are forcing patients to take the shots who are transplant candidates?
Yes, I've been voicing my concerns on that since 2021. It's bullshit. It's complete bullshit.
It's certainly they I'm sure they won't analyze it according to vaccine status, but it's almost certainly worsening survival of both the the transplant candidates who are trying to stay alive for transplant, and worsening the
Exactly, it's pure evil.
right, and worsening the survival of the transplanted organ. Now we do have data showing that vaccines do worsen transplant outcomes in pulmonary transplantation and corneal transplantation right now, and I think other organs will come as follows. It's a bad idea. Don't forget, in transplantation medicine, we actually cause immunocompromise with drugs called calcineurin inhibitors, drugs that interfere with the cell cycle, and then corticosteroids. So we have a situation. The last thing we want to do is give a dangerous, unproven genetic vaccine to a transplant patient.
Absolutely. I think we can all agree with that. Moving on, I wanted to talk to you about Texas politics, American politics, really just touching on, the Republicans' involvement in profiting off of COVID-19. Donald Trump, he took $1 million from Pfizer. I voted for Donald Trump twice. That was a big slap in the face to me, It also shows how much I did not do my research. I see that as blood money. I watched that disastrous interview he did with Megyn Kelly. Now, you think she kind of cornered him. I honestly, I felt he looked weak and incompetent on that topic of COVID, because we still have yet to get an apology or any kind of a repentance on Operation Warp Speed. Nothing good came out of this. And Megyn Kelly also had the nerve to start it with, these vaccines, they helped a lot of people and they've injured a lot of people. Well, she forgot the death part, but I don't see how these vaccines helped anybody.
Well, yeah, she made a false assertion. There are no data suggesting the vaccines helped anybody.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so you can't start with a false assertion. But don't forget, years ago, remember how Trump really insulted her viciously at one of the debates about, her menstrual periods. Remember that?
Yeah.
It's amazing how quickly people forget. I'm an independent voter. If there's a presidential candidate who wants my vote, they need to earn it. No one should behave like a king or a royal family. And
exactly.
And I watched the Republican debate, which was I think just a debacle. The most recent one, they're just shouting at each other.
Never bothered watching it. I'm very upset with the Republicans. But listen, even Marjorie Taylor Greene.
But I think
she boasts about being unvaccinated, and yet she's getting stock money between $1,000 to $15,000.
I think you're probably like me. It's probably better to say you're independent, because independent voters are much stronger, right? So that means you can discern and pick who you want to. As soon as you align with one of the parties, then you're kind of expected to be in that tribe. Now, a couple points, though. Republican debate, none of the candidates recognized the large threat of the vaccines. Now, the U.S. CDC VAERS system indicates just about 18,000 Americans have died of the vaccine, about 1,100 within the same day of taking the shot. That's underreported probably by 30-fold. We're looking at probably just under 600,000 Americans have died of the vaccine. 600,000? That's like Civil War casualties, and none of these guys even recognize it. That shows you how blind they are. So until somebody gets up there and says, listen, 600,000 people have died, Americans have died of the vaccine, we don't even have anybody in the game right now. Now, I look on the Democratic side, we had President Biden, who all experts agree is in significant cognitive decline, and then Robert F. Kennedy. But Kennedy, who I was just on stage with a few days ago, has pre-announced on October 9th, 2023, that he's planning to leave the Democratic Party. And we'll see what happens, maybe independent. So presidential politics are very much in play right now with all this uncertainty. You know, the Trump indictments, Trump can't get on, reconcile and apologize for the vaccine debacle. You've got Biden, it just doesn't seem like he could possibly carry on. Robert F. Kennedy, I think, has to mature into somebody who can really address, foreign affairs, domestic affairs, the economy. We don't need a litigator trying to argue small details. So,
Right.
I've told all the presidential candidates I'm not doing any endorsements yet. And they probably all will seek my endorsement. But, because I've been communicating with America on healthcare more than anybody in the nation. I've done more press interviews. I've done more national TV appearances than anyone by a mile.
And thank you.
That I'm willing to help out all the candidates. I think they all need help. They need to sit down. They need to hear the number 600,000 dead Americans with the vaccine and say, what's your talking point on that?
It's been disappointing. That's I used to be real big into politics. I thought I was going to major in politics at one time too, but you can thank this whole revelation of evil that came out in 2020, and I no longer trust any of them. I think they're all full of shit, and they all need to be held accountable. Even the ones who took the blood money.
Well,
Marjorie Taylor Greene, she boasted about being unvaccinated, and yet she got like $1,000 to $15,000 for Moderna, Pfizer. I mean, that's blood money, Dr. Peter McCullough.
There's the lobbyist money goes around, but prior to COVID, I had pharmaceutical consulting. I had, as a fellowship director, and there was unrestricted grants. So the pharmaceutical money is around, but I think this point of people just not being able to come around to the issue. Do you know a lot of people won't even admit if they've taken the shots or not? So we've got the athletes and others. They can't even admit whether or not they took a shot, like Damar Hamlin or Bronny James. I mean, that's how deep this is. But my suggestion for you seem young and bright and energetic. What we really need is we need people to go into law who have some guts. We've got millions of attorneys right now.
I love to argue.
Yeah, listen, we've had massive violations of civil rights. Where are the attorneys? There's just, a handful of attorneys out there trying to do anything for Americans. The rest are sitting on the sidelines. Many of the attorneys sadly took the vaccines. They didn't show any discernment at all. The courts took the vaccines. The leaders of corporations took the vaccines. And there's
even just trying to find good-hearted Americans who's willing to have the goal to take on the federal government. And it seems like you just can't find very many people in America who are willing to do that. All right, so we're getting close to 8 o'clock. Dr. McCullough, I don't want to keep you, but where is humanity headed? Nobody's been held accountable for COVID-19, everything surrounding it. I also had another uncle who was murdered in the hospital with remdesivir. He was absolutely unrecognizable when they brought him home to take his last few breaths with the family.
Yes.
He spent like 3 weeks in there. I'm surprised he held on the way he did, but that's because they didn't ventilate him. But it ended up coming out later from my cousin that he was administered remdesivir, and let's just say he didn't look the same. The way he went into that hospital, he did not come out looking the same. And I tried to explain to my mom and everybody that's because he was poisoned.
Well, let me say that the hospital outcomes were atrocious. No, there's never been any hospital comparative statistics. None of the hospitals claim to be centers of excellence. I think they're just ashamed of what they did during COVID. I think what we're in for now is we're in for continued mass casualties, including death, because we are seeing deaths now 2 years after the shots. We don't know how long this is going to go on, but we are going to see a giant secular change in mortality in the wrong direction for the world. I don't think we're going to see any accountability at all. We're going to see a continued cover up. Like today, the Nobel Prize going to people who invented it. I mean, this is a massive cover up on every level. And there appears to be willful blindness. I don't think it's as coordinated as what people think. I just think that so many are in a form of a daze. They've taken these shots. Most people are taking the shots. They don't even want to talk about it. You can tell psychologically they can't handle it. So we have a long ways to go. We're coming to the end. I want to let people know where they can follow me. You can follow me. Yeah.
Yes, I want you to give some hope for the vaccine injured. Let them know about your protocols and ways to recover, and please just give a message of hope to the world
Right.
and
So I want.
how they can get involved and
Right. So I want everybody.
rally up behind you in your fight.
I want everybody to go to my website, petermcculloughmd.com. You'll find there the McCullough Protocol, still the most widely used protocol to treat COVID-19 in the world. And now you'll find a new protocol. It's called base spike detoxification. It's an approach where people have had multiple rounds of COVID, multiple vaccines, and they're sick. We know every one of these cases, the body is loaded with the spike protein, which is not broken down by normal human enzymes. So we administer some natural products, nattokinase, 2,000 units twice a day, bromelain 500 milligrams once a day, and curcumin 500 milligrams twice a day. These are natural products that helps the body break down the spike protein, get it out of the body. It takes a long time, minimum of 3 months, mainly 6, 9, 12 months before people turn around. But we're seeing improvement. I can't make any therapeutic claims because large randomized trials have not been completed. They're not even planned right now. But we've seen resolution in the neurologic symptoms, blood clots, people in generally feeling better, heart pounding, taste and smell coming back. I mean, this is all reassuring. We're doing as much research as we possibly can, but base spike detoxification, nattokinase 2,000 units twice a day, bromelain 500 milligrams once a day, and curcumin 500 milligrams twice a day. You can buy them Amazon, any online retailer. One of the best in class nattokinase products is by the wellness company, twc.health.com. I advise that company as the chief scientific officer. Look for spike support. That's a good start. Now, I also want people to know about my Substack, Courageous Discourse, the leading medical Substack. All of the citations I gave today, you can find them on Courageous Discourse. It's, I think, now the most popular medical Substack in the world. My McCullough Report, America Out Loud Talk Radio, McCullough Report, every weekend on Saturday and Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern. And then through the week, I interview experts from all over the world. And then my book, Courage to Face COVID-19, 5-star bestseller on Amazon. By the way, after a year and a half of best-selling performance on Amazon, it's just been banned by Amazon for the false allegation of offensive content. There is no offensive content. This is a gripping true crime narrative. So we're fighting censorship on all these fronts. Make sure you follow me. I'm the top doctor on Twitter right now who sees patients. Twitter's trying to unfollow people as fast as they follow me. They can't stop me at this point in time. They can't stop you because we're bringing people the truth. I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. Thank you so much for having me on the program.
Thank you. God bless you.